There's a piece of conventional wisdom about design leadership that I've never really agreed with. And it goes something like this. As you move up and climb the ladder professionally, you rise above the detail, right? You focus more on strategy, on the big picture. And I think this is wrong. And I've always thought it's wrong. But I think what's happening right now with AI in design is finally going to prove it. Hi, I'm Chris Butler. I'm the Chief Design Officer here at Newfangled. And I've spent some time now using AI in design, which has taught me a lot about what is true about design and always has been, and what is changing. And so let's actually talk about what's changing. For the last decade or so, most design teams have come together around a shared canvas. So for you, that might be Figma. And the canvas has been the source of truth. It's where the design system is created, it's where it lives, it's where it's documented, it's what everyone refers to. And so when you build your design system in it, everything downstream, the website, the ads, the emails, the documents, everything refers back to that canvas. And that works, but it has a cost because when design lives in a speculative environment, like a Figma canvas, there's a big difference between how it works there and how it actually works in the real world. So when you approve a design, you hand it over to somebody to actually build it, to make it real. And in that process, that handoff process, you discover that sometimes things don't work the way you thought they'd work. There's a state you hadn't anticipated, a constraint that you hadn't seen. And so you end up building it differently than you thought, and then going back to that source of truth and bringing it with what's real. And there's that constant back and forth between the speculative world of the canvas, which is still our source of truth, and what's really functioning in the world with code beneath it. And that process goes on and on. And it's fits and bursts where people design, they build, they redesign, they build, and then they move on. And everyone's pretty frustrated, right? That's the nature of how this stuff has worked. But AI changes that because AI shortens the distance or closes the gap between deciding how something should be and making it be that way, deciding how it looks, and then rendering it in another environment. The agent that can render your design system that you've trained it on in just about any format comparatively instantly. So the latency between the imagining and the building closes. And that means that the canvas stays where it has been, right? But that recycling process of going from real world back to canvas, bringing the canvas up to speed, reiterating in the real world, that gets closed down to basically nothing, right? And that's a big shift. And it sounds initially like a story about speed, right? And we focus a lot on that in the AI space, right? How much faster this stuff happens now that the machine is doing it. And that's partly something worth focusing on. But I think the deeper story here is about a distinction that matters a lot. And that is that good design is not generated, machine or not, it's not generated, but production is increasingly generative. And those are two very different things. And I think this is where we need to think about design leadership. If good design is still being done by humans and can still be done in a canvas environment, right? There's nothing wrong with that because that allows you to think visually and build visually. But if production is increasingly being done by machines, you might still assume that the human work moves up and away from the details, toward strategy, toward the brief, toward the abstract goals that a machine can't touch. But I actually think that's increasingly backward when the machine does the production. Because the more we automate production, the more carefully we have to attend to detail. Because you have to do now two new kinds of work that really for. First, you have to think differently in advance of the machine production. You have to document everything precisely in a way that we didn't do because we assumed the handoff was going to another human being, right? So you have to think about every detail precisely. You have to name everything carefully. You have to define every fundamental rule, not just how something looks, but how it behaves. And the agent will then follow those directives to the letter. But whatever you haven't defined is what it will improvise on. So those gaps in your definition, the gaps in your detail at the beginning become direct gaps in the output. Many designers are used to developers saving their butt in the future because they interpreted a thing a certain way or asked a certain question. And you cannot rely upon that in the machine world. And then, of course, you have to think after the machine in a different way than you did when it was a human. You have to review what it produced meticulously because, again, automation amplifies whatever you give it, gaps and all. So a small bit of ambiguity in your system gets multiplied across countless things and encoded in its thinking for future generations. And in the same way, a great key detail gets carried through beautifully, although that may not be appropriate in every instance. So your attention to detail when you're using the machine is increasingly complex, or the need for your attention to detail. The labor that AI takes away is the labor of production, the manual rendering of things, the duplicating, the templating. What it leaves behind and intensifies is the labor of seeing, of noticing what is working, of catching what isn't working, right? In the big things and the small things. And so design leaders in particular, we are not graduating away from that work, and we never have been. We are now, though, being asked to do more of it than ever before. The detail is the big picture now, and we have to look at it more closely. So I've come to think of it in this way. The grandest strategic vision is really nothing more than a sentence on a slide deck until someone makes 1,000 small decisions with care and in the right order. That's what good designers have always done. And it turns out that's what good design leaders have always done too, even the ones who told themselves that they were moving away and rising above it, right? Most of the design leaders I know have always grappled with that tension of like, I'm supposed to be out of the weeds. I'm supposed to be out of the detail, but I'm not. Because why? Because you care. So what AI is actually giving us, if we use it well, is the space to do that work more fully, to get close to the detail, not away from it. And so I encourage you to embrace that. If working with AI is new to you, if you haven't fully dipped in, now's the time. Get in there, try it out, make something. Get used to the interplay between you and the machine. And embrace what in that process it is that amplifies you, the human. Because this is not a zero-sum game, right? It isn't that AI is here now, therefore no human. It is us and the machine. In the same way that it has been with every other piece of technology we've successfully integrated into society. So I'd love to know what you think. If you have experience with this, let me know. Let me know if you disagree with any of this or if there's anything here that's really resonating with you. You can reach out to me right here on LinkedIn. If you're seeing it on LinkedIn, you can reach out to me right here on this website. If you go up to our About page and find me there, you can reach out through a form and you'll get directly to my email, which is chris@newfangled.com. But I'd love to hear what you think. And in the meantime, enjoy what this is doing, which is drawing us deeper into the craft that's always mattered. Thanks for listening.